Hey guys, thank you for joining me once again for a bit of God's Word. Today we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 19. And if you remember from last week's study in chapter 18, the Lord and two of his angels had visited with this man Abraham. The Lord had reaffirmed his promises to Abraham concerning him becoming a great nation. In fact, the Lord would return in about a year and Sarah will have bore a son to Abraham. Sarah laughed to herself, for they both were too far along in years to even dream of having a child. But the Lord reassured them that it would certainly come true. Then the Lord told Abraham that he and his angels were heading to Sodom and Gomorrah to see if they were as sinful as they had heard. And of course the Lord knew. His wrath would be poured out upon those two cities. But Abraham haggled with God, hoping he would spare those cities if there were but a few handful of righteous people found there. The Lord agreed to spare the cities if that were in fact the case. Now we come to chapter 19, and let's start with verses 1 through 3. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning." "No," they answered, "we will spend the night in the square." But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. It's obvious that the two angels mentioned here are the two who had accompanied the Lord earlier in the chapter, or earlier in chapter 18. They had made their way from Hebron to Sodom, which was about 25 miles. They arrived in the evening and had planned to spend the night in the city square. But Lot sees them and offers them a place to stay for the night instead. Lot had been sitting in the gateway of the city. Now, it perhaps means that he was a official or high official in the city. The gateway was sort of the center of the city's commerce, as well as the place where judgment took place. Lot extended his hospitality to these guests, but they initially declined. Lot pressed them, and so they finally relented and allowed him to take care of their needs. He again offers them hospitality. We have to wonder how a righteous man like Lot finds himself settled into such a wicked city. Was it due to pressure from his wife and his family that they were found living there? Were they tired of living out of tents and yearned for a more permanent dwelling and the modern conveniences of living in a city? Was it simply Lot's willingness to coexist with the wickedness there in the city? We just don't know. But verses 4 through 11 says, "Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, 'Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them.' Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, 'No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have two daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof.' 'Get out of our way,' they replied, and they said, 'This fellow came here as an alien, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them.' They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out, pulled Lot back into the house, and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the house, or at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness so that they could not find the door." So here we have evening had fallen, and the men of the city came to Lot's house. They came here not to greet the new arrivals, but for more nefarious reasons, depraved reasons. They all wanted to have sex with these two visitors to their city. Lot tries to be a mediator, and he attempts to diffuse the situation. It's shocking at what length Lot goes to try and protect these men. He even offers the crowd his 2 virgin daughters to these men instead. Quite shocking to us, and was no doubt his last-ditch effort to protect these men under his roof. In ancient times, when a person took in a stranger, they were taking the safety and well-being of that person into their own hands. Such hospitality meant that the host was charged to do absolutely anything under their power to ensure the health and safety of these guests. Perhaps Lot saw offering his 2 daughters as the lesser of 2 evils. But the evil men of the city would not hear of it. They would make no concessions in these demands. The angels end up protecting Lot by dragging him back inside the house and shutting the door. As the mob pressed towards the door, the angels supernaturally blinded them. They groped around in the darkness but couldn't find the door, and we have to wonder why in the world they were still persisting once they found themselves blinded. Was their sinful desires that set on violating these men? There's little doubt Lot got a full picture of who these 2 visitors were at this point, and probably understood them as at least angels. Verses 12 through 14 says the 2 men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. The plans of the Lord are now made perfectly clear to Lot and his family. I'm guessing the 2 angels had Lot's full attention at this point. He was told to get his family and servants and hit the ground, hit the road. Get them out of here. The city would soon be destroyed. Why? Because of the sin and depravity that the Lord had witnessed there. They were a people beyond remedy. Lot attempted to get the word through to his sons-in-law, but they wouldn't listen. They thought it was a joke. They would later find out just how wrong they really were. Verses 15 through 22 says, "With the coming of the dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, 'Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished.' When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, 'Flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away.' But Lot said to them, 'No, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here's a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared.' He said to him, 'Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it.' That is why the town was called Zoar." So early the next morning, the angels repeated their call for the family to get out of town and do it quickly. Lot hesitated, but the angels insisted. The allure of the city and its wealth had apparently gotten hold of Lot and his family. He didn't especially want to leave or abandon it, but the angels grabbed his hand as well as the hands of his family and led them out of the city. The Lord was determined to show mercy to Lot and his household, even though they were the ones who had moved into that city that was so sinful in the first place. Once out of the city, the angels urged them not to even look back. They were to flee for their lives to the mountains and not stop until they had gotten there. For some reason, Lot pleads with the angels for a much shorter flight. He wants to go instead to a small, very small city, Zoar. It was nearby, and the angel grants his request. Once this family reaches Zoar, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah would begin. So verses 23 through 26 says, by the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities and also the vegetation of the land. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. The family reaches the city of Zoar, and the onslaught of the Lord begins on Sodom and Gomorrah and the rest of the plain. It says that the Lord rained down burning sulfur from the heavens. Could it have been a volcano eruption? Well, that's kind of doubtful. Some believe or try to explain it was a combination of an earthquake and lightning or storm at the time. Both these possible explanations try and explain the destruction of these cities using natural means. Such theories often leave out the supernatural actions of Almighty God. I mean, He's the one who created all things. He's the one that brought the plagues upon Egypt. He's the one that destroyed all the inhabitants of the earth except Noah and his family through the flood. He's the one that parted the Red Sea. Whatever the case, the cities are left in ruin, and not even the vegetation survived. Probably the most tragic victim of the Lord's judgment is Lot's wife. She loved the city apparently way too much. She disobeyed the words given to her by the angels. She turns and looks back at Sodom and becomes a pillar of salt. Probably wasn't just a glance back, though, that caused her demise, but the desire in her heart to return to this city of sin and excesses. She could not detach herself from the material goods and the attachment she had to this wicked city, so she pays the price. And now we make a quick transition back to Abraham for just a moment in verses 27 through 29. It says, early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, He remembered Abraham, and He brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. So here we are the next morning again. Abraham returns to the place where he had stood before the Lord and talked to Him and haggled with Him for that matter. He could look towards the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he views a horrid sight. The cities that he had hoped would be spared were now laid bare. The dense smoke rising from the cities testified to Abraham that Lot, the Lord, had not even found a handful of righteous people there. Only Lot and his daughters had survived, and Abraham probably didn't even know that at this point. It's more than likely, as it says here, that it was only for Abraham's sake that Lot was saved from this destruction. Now we go back to Lot and his daughters. Verses 30 through 38 says, Lot and his two daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his daughters lived in a cave. One day the older daughter said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man around here to lie with us, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and then lie with him and preserve our family line through our father. That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and lay with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, last night I lay with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and lie with him so we can preserve our family line through our father. So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went to lay with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son. She named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son. She named him Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. Apparently you can take the daughters out of Sodom, but you can't take the Sodom out of the daughters. Even though the wicked city with its people had been utterly destroyed by the Lord, the wickedness remained in the daughters. Their thoughts and actions go to prove it. They desired a family, so they got their father drunk and slept with him. The older daughter did this one night and the younger the next. They both got pregnant by their own father. In neither case does Lot have any idea what was going on. He is so intoxicated from the wine that he has lost control, lost good judgment, and lost his memory. Alcohol is a great danger that we should take very seriously. It has destroyed many families and lives over the years and certainly continues to do so today. What's worse, we're given no indication that the two daughters are the least bit ashamed of what they had done. The names of their sons even point to that fact. The older daughter named her son Moab, which means from the father. The younger named her son Ben-Ammi, which means son of my people. Both names seem to indicate the illegitimate origins of the birth. These two sons will begin the fathers of the Ammonites and the Moabites. John Davis would write in his Genesis commentary, "The story of Lot and his family should provide a sobering reminder that all of our decisions are significant, even that of where we live. Our moral environment significantly influences our lives. For this and many other reasons, the New Testament constantly implores the believer to fellowship with those of like precious faith." Well, thank you again for joining me for our study through the book of Genesis. Until we meet again, may the God of Abraham bless you, keep you, and give you peace.